Hello and welcome to this unit ICT, Information and Communication Technology. So what we have done is we looked at the NTA latest syllabus, and this is what we found on the official website, that the ICT syllabus is divided into these 4 different categories. And today I am going to focus on the basics of computer and general abbreviations and terminology. So let's dive in. Now all of you are aware that a computer performs 4 primary functions or 4 basic functions. That means every computer that you look at, whether a small computer in your pocket to a supercomputer, it will have an input, it stores some data, it processes some data, and finally outputs a particular data. So input meaning, what could be the input devices? Your keyboard is an input device. Apart from that, your mouse is an input device. The touch screen of your computer or your mobile phone can be your input device. The sensors could be your input device. Now storage is nothing but the memory of the computer. So what is really storage? It is basically the storing of information, right? So it could be in your hard disk, it could be your USB, or it could be your optical disk. So these are various storage devices. Your processing is nothing but your CPU, which basically is the brain of the computer, which is the central processing unit. So there are various algorithms, and algorithms are nothing but series of commands that are given to the CPU, and CPU performs arithmetic functions, it could be logical functions that it performs, and your speed of the CPU is how fast your CPU is, and usually speed is measured in hertz, right? Now what is your output? So for example, your output could be your screen of the computer, right? So let's say you played a movie, it could be your speaker, you played a song, right? It could also be maybe you gave a print command, and your printer could be your output, right? So these could be multiple outputs. So this is really the basic of computer. Now what we've seen historically is that there could be some questions like RAM versus ROM. So I think this is very basic. Now these are both computer memories, but questions could be what really is the difference. So I would say there are a couple of differences. One, this is your temporary memory and this is your permanent memory. RAM is nothing but your random access memory, and ROM, read only memory, right? So also when you talk about RAM is faster, although it is expensive, faster and expensive. Writing on ROM is slow, right here. And your basic system BIOS information is stored in ROM. Also your ROM works without power as well. You don't need power, right? So this is some basic thing about your RAM and ROM, right? Now that we understood the basic functionality of a computer and the 4 broad functions of a computer, we'll get on to understand what is hardware and software. Now people must have heard these 2 terms, and I'm sure everybody is aware. Just to put simply, even if you're not from the computer science background, hardware is nothing but what you see. That means your printer, your CPU, your monitor, your keyboard, your mouse. So what you see, or if you open your computer, what you see inside, right? All of this is nothing but your hardware. What is software? Software is the apps, right? Your applications, right, that are on your system, right? Those your programs, right? So what you don't see. This is a very simple way to put it, right? What is your software and what is your hardware, right? So like I said, here could be those your apps, right? Let's say your the games on your computer, all of those are your softwares. whereas all the inside stuff, right, that means the circuits, right, that means the wires that you see right inside, it could be the plugs that you see, right, all of these are your hardware. Now what happens is that the interaction, right, between your hardware and your software so is done through central processing unit. So CPU is nothing but your master chip that controls all the other things. That's why it is called the brain of the computer. So your software controls your hardware, and this is something very, very basic, but I thought I'll mention this. Also, you may have heard things like OS, right, which is called as operating system. So different types of operating system you must have seen, Windows, Android. So these are different types of operating system. That means the master program that tells how will the software use the hardware of a computer is nothing but your operating system. Moving on, something that all of us should understand, that the foundation of computers is really the binary. That means ultimately computer is a machine. So the language that the computer doesn't understand English or Hindi or Kannada or Malayalam or Tamil, right? Computer understands binary. That means it understands 0 or 1. That means 0 or 1. That means it understands if 0 is off, 1 is on. That is all that a computer understands. So what that means is that we need to be able to convert, right, what we are saying into 0 or 1, and that is really your language of the computer. So for example, if let's say I have words, right, now words ultimately are made of alphabets. So for example, A, I could give number 1, B, I could say this is 2, right? Similarly, if let's say I have, let's say, image, right, so image, what I can do is I can give color a particular number. That is how it will understand. Okay, now also you must have heard things like bit. So a bit is basic unit or the binary digit, which is your 0 or 1, right? This is your binary digit, right? There may be questions on how much is 1 byte. So 1 byte is nothing but 8 bits. Now 1 kilobyte is nothing but 1024 bytes. Similarly, 1 megabyte is nothing but 1024 kilobytes, and so on and so forth. Also on the left hand side, as you can see, there is a conversion as to how you can write this 2. Now 2 in computer language can be written as this, because so we have how many digits? We have 10 digits in our system, right? That means when we say decimal system, you have 0 to 9, that means you have 10 digits, while a computer only understands 0 and 1, that means it has only 2 digits, right? So how will you represent a 2? You will represent like this, right? So let's say starting from 0 0, it can go to 0 1, it can go to 1 0, then it can go 1 1 1, and then it could be 1 0 0, and then 1 0 1, and so on and so forth. But this is how you can do it, right? So what you're doing is you're dividing by 2 and saying, okay, what is the remainder, and ultimately how you get 0. Or if you were to convert this into, let's say, a decimal system, how we can understand is that while a computer have a binary, it will store information in this format. So for example, let's say a number like 20, let's say 15. So how we have in our decimal system, that means the unit digit is 5, the tens digit is 1. That means I can write as 1 into 10 plus 5 into 1, right? This is how we write. Whereas in the computer terminology, this could be 2 to the power 0, this could be 2 to the power 1, this could be 2 to the power 2, this could be 2 to the power 3. So if you have this 1 1 1 1 and you want to convert this into, let's say, your number, how you would do? 2 not into 1, that means 1, 2 to the power 1 into 1, that means 1 plus 2 3 plus 4 plus 8, right? That's how you can convert it. So 8 into 1 8 plus 4 12 plus 2 14 plus 1 15. So that's how you can get the answer. So although I've not seen a conversion of decimal to binary or binary to decimal, right, questions asked on that, but if asked, this is very simple that you can do. All right, so now that we have understood the basics of computer, let's move on to some common abbreviations. So we don't have time to really explain all of these things, how it work, right? So I don't want to get into my computer engineering days, but I'll explain you the basics of these words and what these really mean. So the first term is your adware. So adware is nothing, as the name suggests, this add, that means the small pop-up that you get, right, when you're, let's say, browsing something, and it will tell you something, 1 2 3 things, right? So it is a software app which in which, you know, these advertising banners are displayed, right? So it could be used by companies for marketing, or it can also sometimes automatically get downloaded on your while browsing, right? So these are your adwares. Now what is a spyware? Now again, sounds similar. Again, the keyword is spyware. So an adware was a simple advertising banner. A spyware is a couple of steps ahead of that. So what is it happens is that this is a type of a program that can get installed with or without your permission, and what it does is it spies on you. That's why it says spyware. So what it does is it will check your browsing habits, your behavior, right, as to what is your personality type, what kind of things are your interests, what do you like, where do you normally surf, etc, etc. And what it can do is it can send all this knowledge, right, to a remote user, right? So it's a spyware, right? So this is spyware. Now what is a cookie? Now again, cookie is very simple. This is something what websites, so for example, if let's say you've logged on to a site, right, and let's say now you close the window, you open that site again. So how will the website remember who you are? So this is, cookie is nothing but how websites, or what websites use to remember who you are. This is your cookie, right? It's usually a plain text file, right, that's stored on your computer, and it will store some information about your browsing sessions, right? But the only problem could be that it can be sometimes used by hackers to get your personal information like credit card details, and also we have to be a little careful. Okay, now what is an authoring tool? This is simple, but so let's say if I am a online tutor, or let's say if I am a teacher, a software that allows a teacher to create some interactive content, right, without programming knowledge, right? So for example, your Captivate, your Dreamweaver, right? So all these are examples of authoring tools, right? So like I said, a software that allows teacher to create interactive content, right, without having the knowledge of programming, right? So you can yourself also do some search on what is Captivate, what is Articulate, Storyline, etc. Next is, what is a crawler? So a crawler is a program that systematically browses the World Wide Web in order to create an index of data. So basically your search engines, right, they typically need crawlers to update information, right? So search engines use crawlers to update information. What is an extension? Extension, again, it's very simple. Extension is nothing but the suffix. So you have things like .txt, .doc, right, .exe, right? These are suffix at the end of a file name to indicate what type of a file it is, right? What type of a file it is. Is it a document? Is it a PDF? You know, etc, etc. Now JPG or JPEG is again extension for images, right? Similarly, next one, it says, what is bandwidth? So this is simple. Now if let's say one computer sends information to another computer, right? So let's say I send one information from my to another in the LAN, and let's say we have LAN, right? And bandwidth is nothing but the maximum transmission capacity of a device, right? So normally it's captured like, you know, bits per rate. So you can say it is 3 Mbps speed, or let's say 5 Mbps, etc. So it is usually called bit rate. Okay, micro blogging. Now this is again very simple. Blogging we all know. Micro blogging is again the type of blogging where you use small texts. So for example, very famous your Twitters of the world, right, where you have only 140 characters, right, to blog, to express your views about something. Okay, next is learning management system or CMS, content management system. Now for example, our portal, the Step Up portal, right, is a learning management system. What you have is you have videos, you have tests, it stores information about how to make sure that learning is happening, how we are managing the entire learning value chain. So that is your learning management system. Some of the open sources, like for example Moodle is one open source LMS that a lot of schools use across the world. So those are examples of LMS. Okay, now what is optical character recognition, right? The electronic conversion of images. So for example, let's say if you scan a particular document, or your handwritten documents, right, sometimes they are scanned, right? So the electronic conversion, right, so this is your electronic conversion of images or handwritten text into a machine is your OCR, right, or full form optical character recognition. Now what is open source? So open source are software freely available. That means let's say your Linux is an operating system software, so it is not owned by somebody, right? It's sort of owned by the community of these developers who write the code, and you can use the code, you can update it. So softwares that are freely available, normally used as the open source. Now what is pixel? Like I said, an image, right? If you have an image but a computer understands, so what you may do is, let's say you have image, and what you may do is you may block it into these small pixels, right? So this small thing, right, so this small color which could be represented by this could be your your pixel. So again, what is a pop-up? So pop-up is something very, it's a graphical user interface, your display area, right? It's like a adware, right? How you get adware, right, of ABC. Similarly, your pop-up is nothing that pops up, right? It's a small display area on your computer, right, when you're browsing, right? So that's your pop-up. Now podcast, again, it has come from two terms, right? Your iPod, the famous iPod, plus broadcast, right? So usually it is the audio messages that you get, right? Wordcast is again where you get video plus audio. Public domain is something that is available freely in the public domain, something that you can use, access, which is not confidential. Okay, moving on. What is a portal? Portal or a web portal, right? Usually it is known as web portals, right? Are nothing but websites that bring information from different sources, right? It could be emails, it could be forums, it could be using search engines, but basically web portal is a website, right, which has information. So your website which has information from various sources. Now client servers is usually used in terms of architecture, right? So it's again a type of software architecture wherein you say one computer acts as a client, other as a server. Now what it means is that the service requester who is requesting, right, of course becomes your client. So I'll write service requester, and this is somebody that is who is providing the service. So let's say you're asking for a data. What provides you the service is the server, right? And you asked for the data, so your computer becomes the client computer, right? Now what is a firewall? Again, this is very simple. Firewall is basically to protect, right, unauthorized entry. So firewall is protecting a network or a system from unauthorized access. So for example, somebody from here who doesn't have the authorized access wants to enter to, let's say, our LAN, right, into this network or any of the computer. Firewall is there which will check for its identity and can allow or reject that particular request. Now spams is nothing. Spam, like you get spam calls. Similarly, sometimes your emails are flooded by unwanted mails from unknown sources. These are your spam mails. Audio conferences, companies or schools or colleges may use when people are distantly located and they want to talk to each other, so it could be your audio conference. Video conference is when you also have telepresence, meaning you can also see each other, not only hear each other. Splog again is made up of spam plus blog. So sometimes what people do is, in order to promote the affiliate websites, they may write blogs and send provide links of that affiliate website, so that you keep going to that particular website. Okay, so now next is your tag. Tag is a keyword assigned to a piece of information, such as it's like a bookmark, right? You can say it's like a bookmark, right? Which, or a digital record, right? Database record. So it's a keyword assigned to a piece of information, that is your tag. Broadcast, like I said, it's video broadcast, right? VoIP, again, companies use, instead of using the expensive phone service, right? What they may use is, they may use voice over internet protocol in order to make calls to each other. People are located across shores. One person is in one country, another is in another country, so how do they talk to each other, right? So for that communication you could use VoIP. It's a cheaper mode. Wikipedia, I need not explain, right? The repository of information, right? Wikipedia is one example of wiki. Wi-Fi stands for wireless fidelity. That means when you talk about internet connection, it can be enabled through through your wires, through your optical fiber, right, etc., etc. But it can also be done through radio waves, and that is what your Wi-Fi does, right? Now zip is again when you compress certain files together and store in your computer, so that it's easy to go from one place to another in packets, right? ALU, again, this is arithmetic logical units, right? So inside your CPU, right, you have all your circuits, and ALU, which performs these arithmetic logical functions. CD-ROM, again, this is compact disk read only memory. MICR stands for magnetic ink character recognition. That means if sometimes you want to check whether the paper documents, right, to verify the originality of paper documents. For example, take the example of your checks, right? So on a check, what happens is, here is at the bottom is your check number and the information that is placed here, right? So MICR are really the special ink which is sensitive to magnetic field, and that's why we use this technology, MICR. Again, bug is very, very simple. It's a coding error, right? So coding error in your computer program, so error in your computer program. Also, we sometimes use debugging, is that process of finding errors in your program. So I think here we have sort of discussed the general abbreviations and terminology. We have few more key terms, and what we did is, we thought we'll put it separately and put these key terms, right, under cybersecurity. So cybersecurity, again, is a very important topic these days, and you could expect a question or two on cybersecurity. Hacking is something very, very simple. That means your unauthorized access, unauthorized intrusion into a computer or a network, right? That is your hacking, and the person who does is called a hacker, right? So this is hacking. Now what is phishing? Phishing is nothing but sometimes you will see spam emails, right? Your spam emails which will ask you to take certain action, but the intention is to trick people into sharing sensitive information. So it could pretend that it's coming from your bank, let's say your ICICI bank, but what you may actually do is, if you actually see the link and go there, in the URL it may not actually be that bank's website, right? It could be a spam website where somebody is trying to trick you. So it seems like it's a trustworthy email, but you have to be careful around this spam emails. Now Trojan horse, Now again, this goes into back area where the Greeks entered into the city of Troy, and the what happens here is that it looks like a genuine application, but what happens is like a Trojan horse. You have to understand like a backdoor entry, right? That means you are allowing somebody unauthorized a backdoor entry into your computer, and what they may do is they may take your confidential personal information and they can share it with others. Now piggybacking again is a similar concept like tailgating. So let's say there is a access restricted area, but what I do is in the physical world I enter the gate, right? I swipe my badge and I enter the gate, but somebody else, right, also follows and enters without swiping his badge. So that is piggybacking. Similarly, you can understand the same concept in computers also. Identity theft again, identity theft again, trying to steal the confidential information, right? Confidential or private information of somebody. Again, identity theft, these are again hackers do this. Denial of service is that what hackers may also do is they may overwhelm a website with too many requests. So normally a website can handle millions of requests, but what if the hackers send billions and trillions of requests to that website, right? And ultimately what will happen is the website may get overwhelmed and may stop responding. So that is your denial of service. So these are all again types of attacks, the cyber attacks that happen, right? But I think one simple thing that I'll say is when we look at these terms, or in general about cyber security, they say 90% of the cyber attacks can be avoided by just are done because of the human error. That means if you are a little careful, if you don't click on that link, you can save yourself from these cyber attacks. So that's it for this video. I hope you got a very good understanding of the basics of computer. We have dealt with a lot of complex looking terms. We did not really look at simple terms, but complex terms that people are confused, people who are especially not from computers background. So I hope you are able to now get a very good understanding about it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.